Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Your Gun Doctor here. Today we're going to make a tier list of all the guns in the Warzone, Cold War, Modern Warfare, everything. We're going to pair them after strongest meta, so what's really absolute crowd right now, can compete off meta, is kind of guns that can keep up with what the strongest meta, the top 1% of the Diamonds lobbies have to offer, where you can still play in Diamond 1 with, and you can compete and you can actually easily win your games. Then we have the viable ones where it's obviously possible to beat what's up on top, but they have all their tiny weaknesses and ups and downs, followed up by definitely do not play and then memes and niche. Also, for all these guns on ponyf.eu, you'll be able to find then loadouts to see what you think yourself, if these could work, if these are going good, with videos explaining accordingly to what the guns do, how they're built, and why they're built like that. Definitely drop in the comments below what you think, if my predictions here are correct, what the meta is, what can compete, what's viable. And if you do like these tiers, or if you like something of this change, and all the resources will also link in the description below, so you can make your own tier list out of the existing ones with all these pictures that took me actually hours to compile. For example, the AK-47 Cold War packs an insane punch, so it has great damage, but the recoil is something that you have to get used to. So in comparison to the ffar, it's not that easy to use. It's a lover gun, but it can definitely compete with the current meta because the AK-47 Cold War has a 500 milliseconds time to kill and just packs a great punch as a sniper support gun with a Kar 98 SPR, whatever you feel like. When it comes down to the AK-47 Modern Warfare, I would only put it as a viable. The gun can be played as a VOK optic, but it can also be played as a sniper support. But compared to the AK-47 Cold War, it's definitely more unreliable because the AK-47 Cold War has a Harry Potter scar recoil that's easy to control, where the AK-47 Modern Warfare is a bit wibbly wobbly. The AMAX is obviously strongest meta, straight up on top. There are a couple of builds, sniper support, long range, mid range. If you miss some shots, the time to kill drops tremendously. Still though, it's definitely up there. It's being played in the Diamond 1 top percentage lobbies, going crazy. When it comes to the AN94, I would love to put it viable, but the reality it's a do not play. The AN94 is fine if you play with a thermal optic because the special thermal optic for the AN94 is absolutely insane. But realistically, the AN94, if you miss the hyperburst being bop bop when the gun starts shooting, your TTK drops tremendously. We're talking about the ASVAL. The ASVAL has only a 30 round mag. You can play it with sleight of hand without sleight of hand. It's a tremendous, great sniper support gun. You could play it as an SMG together with an AMAX, for example. Double AR meta can definitely compete, but I wouldn't put it strongest because it falls tremendously off with only having 30 bullets. We're going to put the FAL as a viable gun. I wouldn't even put it as an off meta. It can definitely compete with what is the strongest, but the gun is so hardcore niche since it's a single fire. Hey, if you have a full auto macro on your controller or on your PC, sure, it's absolutely insane. But realistically, the gun is good, but it needs a really strong and awesome hand to wield it and shoot with it. When we're coming to the ffar is definitely viable. It's not off meta because so many guns do better what the ffar does. A lot of people were trying to use the ffar like a Crick, like a Kilo, something like that, long range, but that's not what the gun can do. The recoil is worse for it. It's a sniper support gun, but there's so many better sniper support gun options with a better time to kill right now that the ffar is viable, but I wouldn't put it in the can compete tier. The ffar, obviously one of the strongest right now. It's so stupid broken, and we hope that it's gonna get nerfed. Multiple builds for it. You can play it strafe speed, you can play sniper support, you could even play it as a medium range 50-60 meters beam gun, but that's only for the very experienced aggressive players. The FR 556 comes under do not play. It is not viable, but realistically there's a reason no one plays it, and that's because it's just not good. Yes, you can burst people down, and yes, it's not completely horrible, but the reality is there are just way better options. The Grau falls under viable. I wouldn't put it in the can compete tier because right now we have a sniper meta where the Grau gets sniped out of life. The Grau definitely loses against the AMAX and the Ram 7, for example. The Grau is viable though. It is an absolute beamer. It hits every single shot. You can play it no scope. Some people played sniper support, but I'm going to say sniper support makes zero sense because you're going to get clapped out of life by things like the AK, ASVAL, AMAX ffar. Like sniper support, no sense. On long range, definitely viable. We have the Grossa, definitely comes under can compete off meta because it can definitely outgun the ffar, MAC-10, all the guns. It can completely outgun them. It has absolute chance to go face to face, but the recoil of the Grossa is just harder to handle than the ffar. So if we're talking about 40-meter shots, possible, but you're going to get used to what the Grossa puts on the table. Then we have the Kilo 1-for-1. It's a hit marker machine at this point with a couple of nerfs as gun. It still works though, so as a long-range beamer, it's viable. I would not say it can compete with the AMAX, because if you're fighting AMAX versus Kilo in a certain range, the AMAX is just going to bamboozle you out of life, even if you have first shot with a Kilo. That being said, the Kilo still though is good. Then we have the Crick 6. I would almost put the Crick 6 in do not play, sadly, but we can put it on viable. The problem with the Crick 6 is that every single scope gives it some weird wibble wobble. The only way to actually play the Crick 6, in my opinion, is sniper support possible? Yes, but will lose against the top tier guns. Can play it with a thermal scope as a long range gun, because the thermal scope allows you to shoot on any distance because you see more, and the thermal scope on the footwear guns reduces visual recoils tremendously. So I'd say possible as a thermal gun for long range beaming. Then we have the M13, definitely putting under the viable thing here. The problem with the M13 is, as awesome as it is, as awesome, no recoil, high damage, super crazy fire rate, you will need a certain amount of bullets to kill someone, and that will get you killed in many situations. So let's say in a solo or duo, I'd say it's viable and even can compete. But if you're going for trios and quads, you're going to shoot one of the trio players, it's going to like, and he's finally down. But in the time we're doing, his friend is going to be like, whoa, what's he shooting there? That's taking a while. Just whoops out his FAR and beams you away in 10 shots. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. So that's kind of like the problem with the M13 there. Then we have the M4A1. I would actually put it in the can compete tier, because the M4A1 is a great sniper support gun. It works absolutely fine. It can be played on long range very good. But the main argument is that if you play a blue dot or a no side M4 as a sniper support gun, it can definitely keep up with the current meta. Super agile, super mobile, and works very well. Then we have the Odin. Technically, the Odin belongs in the memes niche tier. It can also compete with the current meta. Realistically, it's just viable. The Odin is a lover gun. It works really good with the thermal version. It works really good in the long range version with the sniper scope, even in other shenanigans, but it's not good enough to be considered off meta for me. Yes, I can win games with it. Yes, I can beat every single other gun in the whole freaking game with it. Then again, it's 20 bullets, and that's really the big limitation factor, and you can only bump it up to 30 max. The XM4 comes under the viable tier. It's a really good long-range beamer with a thermal scope. We have some really interesting builds for that. So with the XM4, I've been absolutely clapping other guns, even the FAR, even the AMAX on ranges with a thermal scope. Still, though, you only have this tiny thermal scope, and the thermal scope kind of limits your vision, and that kind of puts it down to viable for me, because if you play this with a 3x or even with a Susan multi-zoom or any of the scopes, it really ruins your visual recoil and the amount of shots that you just hit. Then we have the Scar 17, straight up memes. No, the Scar 17 can actually be put as do not play, as much as I want to put it viable, because it has a good time to kill at 720 milliseconds, so you can actually kill people with that. The reality is the same problem with it as you have with the AN19 or the M13 partially, that you shoot someone and the amount of time it takes you to kill him, you're going to get clapped by his friends easily. Or if a friend has a sniper or something, while you're still sitting there and shooting only at unaware targets that are not shooting back, you're going to be good. But if you have a face on face off, you're just going to lose every single time. Then last but not least, in the AR category, we have the Ram 7, and that's absolutely strongest meta. The Ram 7 is equal to the AMAX in the time to kill. But the most important part is that you can just mount the Ram 7 and you can just no recoil beam it. That makes it an insane sniper support gun with a blue dot. You can just mount it, and with a blue dot, you can shoot on 500 meters. Or you play with a Cronin, VLK, Candid Hybrid, whatever you're using for that, and you can shoot on any meter against any weapon, sniper whatsoever, and get it down. Now let's cover the LMGs. We start with the Bruin first. A lot of people would yell Bruin definitely can compete off meta, but the reality for me is that the Bruin, after a couple of nerfs and everything, despite getting done with the recoil and everything, doesn't pack enough punch anymore to be considered can compete off meta. It is viable, you can play it, you can have fun with it, it's really good, you can play it 100 round mag, 60 round mag, but the punch it packs get tremendously reduced. Then with the Fin LMG, the Fin LMG is an absolute zero recoil gun. You can shoot it straight away, it's absolute beamer, it's super amazing, especially when you mount it too. But the reality is the damage is low. It's definitely viable though, because you can also play it as an SMG version, which is extremely strong. We played that as a sniper support gun or together with another AR, works fantastic. That being said, the time to kill on the long range Fin LMG is kind of like low as the Crick, for example, is. You hit every single bullet though, which makes it a really good gun. Followed up by the Holger, straight up do not play. The gun is shit. There's nothing more to say about it. I wish it wasn't. I love the G36. kind of going for some builds. But the reality with the Holger is you'll just lose firefights and like, I lost because of the Holger. I lost because of the Holger. I hit every single shot, but I lost because of the Holger. And that's just what it is. Same with the M60. The M60 ain't terrible, but the M60 has a recoil that's mainly horizontal. You can't control horizontal recoil. It's just chalked. Followed up by the M91, doesn't do anything special. It's big do not play. Technically, the M91 as a VLK gun does not have any recoil. It's absolutely crazy. Sniper support gun too, but it just does not pack any punch. So to call off that could compete with anything here being said. Then we have the MG34 straight up going for me off meta. I know a lot of people are going to be like, what movement speed, reload time, everything. But these are things that can be mitigated by a very good player. We played with the 100 round mag version. We dropped some videos on it. It's absolutely good. Check out the Loadout website to see why I think it's actually so good and why it's working so well for me. Then followed up by the PKM. PKM definitely can compete off meta. You can play that sniper support gun if you're playing extremely campy, or you can play it as a VLK gun that you can mount and beam people. The punch it packs is absolutely insane. You get shredded by the PKM so fast, especially like in these far 30-40 meter ranges. Somebody's like, what killed me? It was a PKM? That's impossible. No, it's not. The PKM is absolutely insane. Then the RPD comes under the viable because it has 0 recoil. It shoots 20 bullets and then it actually does have 0 recoil. I'm not saying 0 recoil for fun. 20 bullets, 0 recoil. And that's the RPD for you. Sniper support gun or VLK gun, 3 times actual 3 arms. It works fantastic. That being said, it's a hit marker machine. So it does work fantastic 0 recoil wise, but it's a hit marker machine. So if you're playing it together with a team and you're not the main focus of bullets, yes, works really well. If you're playing this in solos, you'll probably die to using the RPD. The SA-87 comes under do not play, not because it's not doing enough damage, but the reality is the movement speed, the reload, the ADS, everything is chalked and very slow. That kind of falls out of actually being viable in my opinion. With the Stoner 63, definitely straight up compete. You're playing this with a thermal scope and you have an absolute steady straight beamer. Susan multi-zoom can also be an option there, but then you'll glint. Stoner 63 though, just as a PKM, packing the absolute punch, and you will not struggle to actually win your firefights. And on top of that, you mount that thing, you go in long range, and you're good to go with the Stoner. Let's talk about the marksman rifle. Crossbow. They're memes, they're niche, as good as they are explosive tips and so on. They're fun to play, but that's roughly about it. Obviously, they can't compete. They're not complete meta. They're completely meme. Then the EBR, as much as I want to put it under viable, it's just a big do not play. You can't really spam it away. It's not really amazing to just, you can't really spam it away. A sniper just one-shots you. Yes, you can hit 2 shots in a row. It's okay as a gun, but the reality is just that it's a big do not play. It's not viable, it can't compete, and it's not the strongest in any way. The Kar 98 is absolute meta right now. There's no question about it. It's up there. It's super precise, super fast ADS time. You can pair it with the meta guns. ffar Kar 98 is just what we're going for. Absolute good clapper of a sniper. Then we have the MK2 carbine. That is a do not play. Yes, we can put it under viable because it's not terrible, but the reality is you're memeing, you're niching with it, but you're not going to be serious about this. Followed up by the SKS. The SKS I really want to put under viable, but the bullet velocity is just chalked. The recoil is just chalked. It's just not like a DMR or an M14. You can spam it away. You could do something with the blue dot version, but that also falls under memes extreme niche more than it's actually a viable gun. When it comes down to the FPR, a lot would say that can compete off meta. I would straight actually put it under meta. For me, you have a couple of builds that are exactly like the Kar 98, especially the Metaphor build or the updated Metaphor build that I put out. That is definitely a good gun. A lot of people just don't give it a chance because they are so stuck up with the Kar 98 because the Kar 98 is longer in the game already. But realistically, I just do believe the SPR to be an absolute insane strong meta gun. Now let's throw an eye on the SMGs. We're going to start with the AK-74U. Definitely viable. Wouldn't put it into off meta right now. It packs a good punch, but then again, it also has a very slow handling compared to, for example, the Bullfrog. I put in the Bullfrog into off-meta viable because it's a very good sniper support gun, but can be also paired good with a Ram 7, PKM, or the Stoner, for example, to then be able to be short range plus long range. So it definitely can work very good versus the ffar. You need to obviously prioritize the headshots, but the handling in general and the movement speed feels way higher than the AK-74U, and that elevates it over the gun, especially also has a base very good 50 round mag that just reloads super fast. The AUG Modern Warfare is just viable, almost do not play, mainly for the reason that it just has this insane low movement speed. You're going to play it as the 5.56 version to pack a very good punch, But then if you played as the 5.56 version with the longest barrel, for example, even if you try to mitigate it and try to build like a medium build, it has such slow movement speed. The Bison is straight up do not play. Bullfrog does everything better what the Bison could do. There's no question to ever use it. The Fennec almost can compete because it can outgun every single gun, but I would only put it in can compete for solos and duos. Then for trios and quads, it pretty much swaps into viable because yes, the low amount mag and the reload speed then with maybe sleight of hand and so on just really bums it down tremendously. We have the ISO. The ISO's chalk. The time to kill is stupid. Yes, it's a good gun with a good hip fire, but realistically, I would put it under do not play. There's no reason for me to use the ISO over any single other gun. I would use the Fennec over the ISO, and I totally completely shit on the ISO. The KSP falls under the same as straight up do not play. There's no viability, no burst mode, nothing. I know there are YouTube videos out there that says the 1 burst, 2 burst, blah, blah, blah. Absolutely not worth it. The LC10 definitely falls under viable, has an okay time to kill, but the most important part is it has absolute zero recoil. So you can just straight up beam it straight away with a good hip fire potential and good movement speed on top of that. The Mag 10, I wouldn't even put it under off meta right now or even under meta. I know people still play the Mag 10, but it's mostly ffar right now. It's not even the strongest anymore. Other guns just compete very well with the Mag 10 and do a very great job. It used to be super good, but nowadays, I mean, almost pumping it down to viable. I mean, it feels like it's a can compete off meta gun more than it's the strongest meta gun at this point. We have the Milano. The Milano straight up falls under do not play. It's one of the lowest time to kill rifles that has no recoil, but it definitely is not viable because the time to kill will have you lose fights. We have the MP5 Cold War. I do really like it with the hipfire potential and the beaming. I'm struggling between can compete and off meta because with the MP5 Cold War, you will have your problems against a Bullfrog that hits headshots, against an AK-47 that hits very good. The ASVL will outgun you. Yes, it has good hipfire. Yes, it shoots nicely. I would put more though under viable than under can compete off meta. Then we have the Modern Warfare MP5. Same thing here. Very good hipfire, but the time to kill in comparison to other fields chalk. Very good movement speed too. I mean, these two are definitely viable and definitely can be played, and you can absolutely win games with that. Then last but not least, we have the Uzi. The Uzi lands under, I would love to put it niche, but the reality is it's actually is viable because as a sniper support gun, you could even play it very campy with a VLK optic. It has insane ranges, but the Uzi has one of these things where it is a very good sniper support gun that also maintains a very good hipfire. So you can shoot it still on 20-30 meters, very stable. But while you do that, you can also maintain insane good hipfire on the levels of an MP5 Modern Warfare. So it's definitely a viable gun that can work together with a stoner, with a sniper, with a PKM, with a RAM 7 AMAX on long range. Now let's talk about the tactical rifles. I think that's pretty simple. AUG, strong as broken, needs to get nerfed. No question about that. Absolute stupid gun. Same as the M16 goes there too. Absolutely stupid broken. AUG obviously better right now because of the slight faster shooting speed, slight faster time to kill. M16 better on long ranges, personal down to your playstyle. Both guns very good. Definitely need a nerf. Especially because they do not have a damage fall off on any distance, so they do the same damage on any distance, which just makes it so stupid because you just have to hit 2 bullets out of a burst and it's 80 damage on 500 meters. Thank you. The DMR-14 and the Type 63, I can't even put them under viable anymore. For me, they're like memes and niche at this point due to all the nerfs and everything that brought them down to. Yes, you can still play them, but you either choose bullet velocity or fire rate. If you choose fire rate, you miss the bullet velocity. If you choose bullet velocity, you miss the fire rate. So there's no way to actually play them reliably good as meta or even can compete. Yeah, sorry. They're memes and niche at this point. Now comes an interesting category, the shotguns, because there are some that are actually really meta and some that are obviously completely memes, niche, and do not play. I mean, the 725 is a do not play. I can't even meme this gun. Very simple. The 680 with Dragon Thrust can be used for niching and meming, which goes also for the Hooer. The Hooer is technically a one-shot headshot, but one-shot headshot close up. So really hard to actually pull this off. So it's more the memes niche than the do not play. The Argent falls for me under do not play. Very simple. It doesn't do anything special anymore. I would put the R9 as viable almost. But the problem with the R9 is if you really miss that second doof, your time to kill plummets so tremendously. It's absolutely crazy. The VLK Rogue is decent, but I would put it more under memes niche than actually viable. The doof doof has the advantage of just being doof 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 doof, and you're down, so you can peek a corner doof doof, peek a corner doof doof. The VLK is a bit different there when it comes down to range and same movement speed though, but again, it's more for niche users. The Gallo I would absolutely put under can compete off meta for the main reason that the Gallo can be used up to 20 meters easily. Yes, 10 meters is the nice time to kill range, and on 10 meters you have no problems to compete with any rifle. You can play Gallo FAR, Gallo Ram 7, Gallo AMAX, and you're very good off to actually compete with the strongest meta guns, and you might even be better off close quarter combat in a building. The same kind of goes for the Jak 12. I would love to put the Jak 12 under only viable and not off meta, but the Jak 12 is so strong, especially even on ranges together then with the beaming AR or LMG. The Jak 12 is super powerful, and you will actually not lose a single fight inside a building. You gotta obviously adapt your playstyle to then playing a shotgun. When it comes down to the Street Sweeper compared to the Jak 12, it's kind of more or less the same gun. The problem with the Street Sweeper is the reload. Realistically, you will only reload between fights, so I don't think it's that much of a problem that people make out of it. But then again, realistically, in comparison to the Jak 12, yes, the Street Sweeper will have that problem of the reload times, and that makes it then viable and not off meta for me. Up and about to cover the sniper rifles. So when it comes down to the AX50, right now I feel like every other sniper rifle does everything better than the AX50 does. That being said, the AX50 has a very good standard zoom, and that's where I feel like it's viable, because you might be hitting your shots very good just due to the standard zoom of the AX50 that helps tremendously. The Dragunov is a straight do not play. Yes, you can meme niche with it, but the reality is even meming niching is extremely hard. I've won some games with the Dragunov, but it is just not good. It falls under a do not play marker. The Riot is kind of the same, so you want to put it under meme niche because of the explosive thermite rounds where you can shoot cars with, and that's pretty much the only reason to play the Riot, because the M82 does everything better than the Riot does. And yes, I would pull the M82 up to meta for the very simple reason that if you're a campy player, so let's say you're playing the It's Iron playstyle, the M82 is definitely up to with the HDR because they have the same bullet drop on standing still targets. So if you're camping with this gun and you can mount it, you just spam it away. Running targets will be harsher to hit, but as soon as you get used to the artillery playstyle, the gun is absolutely top-notch, unmatched, and very good to play off. That being said, yes, the HDR is very slow, but realistically, it's one of the main meta guns, the strongest guns, because if you're playing slow, if you're playing campy, if you're playing up to the task of just picking off people that are running the distance, the HDR is what you want to have with the insane bullet velocity and the low bullet drop. We're looking at the Tundra. The Tundra is like the HDR, even better than the HDR, technically, when it comes down to velocity on running targets, but it has the weird ADS time and the weird wibble wobble that actually Cold War snipers have. For me, though, with a standard scope, not even with the actual 3x, the extra 3x makes it viable because of no zoom, but with the standard zoom scope, it has been very good for me in winning me games tremendously and especially consistently. So I would put the Tundra definitely under off meta. When we have the Pellington, I would love to put the Pellington as one of the strongest guns or even off meta. But the reality is something feels decisively weird about the Pellington, so I only put it under viable because it might hit their shots, but I can't get any consistency in the Pellington compared to the other guns. Might have to use the standard Pellington scope for that to see if I can get more consistency into the gun to bring it up to SPR values of feeling good. The pistols are easy talked about. Most of them are just straight up do not play because you're reality not going to be doing anything good with them. Deagle, no. Magnum, no. X16, no. We have the Diamatis, which have been good. They're still viable, but they're not extremely good. When it comes down to M19, I would even put them to off meta because the M19s realistically can compete with everything, shotguns, ARs, FARs, and everything. Especially you can put them into your ghost loadout straight off the rip and then replace them later on if you feel like it. So the M19s is one of the more insane pistols, just going clibbity-clabbity left and right. When it comes down to the 1911 Cold War, I heard they're good, but reality-wise, no. Renetti, no. The Snake Shot, can put that under memeing. They do still work as Snake Shot bang bang rifles. They still double shot, and if you have stopping power rounds in it, they can still one bang you. So that is very good, and you can memes niche with them, but again, they're not consistent and not reliable. When it comes down to the melee weapons, and this is for all the melee weapons, it's meme niche, that's it. There's no way melee weapons are consistent, no melee weapons are going to work. That being said, I would actually put the Riot Shield as off meta. Simple due to the fact that if you play this very smart and if you pair this with an ffar, this is Diamond 1 lobby material, top 1% of the player base, winning games merely based on having a shield and supporting your team with that. You can do very smart play with smoke grenades, you can shield off corners, you can shield off corridors, you can help your team push, you can scare people, you can have restock. There are many reasons why this shield is actually good and the way you can play in. But our buddy Jay Wickle has won us simply games by being the one Riot Shield player that supports the team like a smart legend. So I would definitely say it falls under the can compete off meta tier because it just is so good if you know what you're doing. One category left, the rocket launchers. No, 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 no. And the Strela would almost be memes niche, but you could almost say the Strela is actually off meta in solos. Because starting with a ffar Strela is one of the strongest loadouts you can go for, just taking out cars left and right. And then in the end game, if you have a loadout 5, you can carry a Strela with you in the zone, swap for an AUG that you found on the ground, throw up to an M16 sniper rifle whatsoever, use the Strela to take out the Berthas that is there, and then actually dominate the competition from that point on. So the Strela is insane, especially due to the absolute hit scan behavior where it just bam, and then it flies out and goes crazy. Now, as we went through all these guns, let me show you some loadouts for strongest meta guns and for the can compete off meta, so you have some to feel for, but also for every single gun that you see here in this tier list, also linked in the description below. On the pony.eu website /loadouts, you can find for everything. So we have the AS Val with according videos to that. You have the MP5s and other shenanigans. So for every single gun that's more or less in there, you will find a loadout, you will find a build, you'll find something, and then you can decide yourself if the rating is accurate, if you find they're viable off meta or not. So we'll give you some loadouts now in the video, but then again, also the website has them all for you with the according videos to this if you need more in-depth knowledge for that. Let's begin with the all-time fan favorite, the ffar. Many different ways you can play it. Currently, several round 50 round mag and agency suppressor is obviously standard, plus the Raider stock. What I do is I play the reinforced heavy barrel. Usually I promote the takedown barrel for the absolute strafe speed. What happens if I place takedown barrel and Asphet speed grim, which gives me sprint movement speed, and I don't move normal, I only sprint, so the minus movement speed is inconsequential for me. I'm a slide cancer for life. Is that I overstrafe with this build. So I replace the takedown easily through the reinforced heavy to then have the perfect build to combine with anything. Crossbow, sniper, stoner, SPR, AUG, whatever you would like for. That's how I play my farm. Then also the AUG and the M16, quite the standard build. You're going for the strike team. It doesn't say bullet velocity, but it does bullet velocity. Together with the agency silencer, field agent grip, 45 round drum mag. I know there are some that don't do the penalty as for the M16, but realistically get used to the 45 round mag because at some point it's going to get balanced. And then last but not least, when it comes down to the optic, either the actual 3 arms with my good old Cornelius reticle because it just feels the best. You can also do thermal scope, which works fantastically fine. We have a whole video on a thermal M16, which is great. Or the Suzette multi-zoom to have in the 2 times less visual recoil, which feels really nicely, especially that you can zoom in and out according to how close your opponent is. Then with the 2 times beam even harder, faster, stronger, and with the 4 times have still good visual recoil. Then, as a gun that can compete with the current meta, if you get used to it, the AK-47 Cold War with the VDV Reinforced Liberator gives you more bullet velocity, yes, but the Reinforced is the best for effective damage range and bullet velocity together. With the Grew Suppressor, we come with the Spasm Speed Grip, you have the 45 round mag with an insane reload speed, and then when it comes down to actually your scope-a-roo, you got to decide what fits best for you. I've been using the Silix Holo Scout a lot, but sometimes in close quarter combat it can be a hassle, so I've been more experimenting around with the Hawksmoor. The Hawksmoor is fantastic, especially since you can also put the Cornelius on it, and that works really fine for me to then compete with other sniper rifle builds. Again, the AK-47 has a Harry Potter scar recoil that you have to get used to. The most important part is to not overcompensate because it's going to throw you off. Also, we talked about the SPR instead of the Kar 98 or as a Kar 98 replacement. You know all the standard Kar 98 build, obviously, but the SPR can be played with a normal mag and then either with a monolithic suppressor or the Zero twist barrel for the same ADS speed that pretty much the Kar 98 has. We're going to put on the Soldier SPR 28mm mag, the tac laser for the speed, and then last but not least, the Bliss stock. And that thing is an absolute crazy thing. Just wheel it like the Kar 98 as a super aggressive sniper, together then with a ffar or even an SMG. I've been playing with a Fennec. You could do the Bullfrog too, but also just play the ffar, Groza, AK-47, whatever you feel like. Zoom over the battlefields. Clap Jimmy's left and right. Ladies and gentlemen, do you agree with the tier list or not? Definitely drop in the comments below what you do believe to not be fitting into these tiers. I didn't want to go for the normal S, A, B, C, D, E tier because that is useless for us. This is more a tier for you to feel like, what could I play? What can I win games with? And what does definitely compete with the current meta, strongest guns? What can I outplay the top 1 diamond players with? And when I'm saying, I mean, can compete, I mean, you can play this in diamond 1 lobbies and consistently perform well with these guns. All tested by me, myself, playing in diamond 1 lobbies. Whereas the strongest meta obviously has the advantage of being the easiest channel, the most damage, and so on. The can compete can definitely compete with these and can win your games tremendously up. The viable is obviously just where it's going for the viable. So it's able to be played, but it's not completely crazy insane. The don't plays are, as always, don't get them in. I mean, if you feel you completely disagree with this, I would like to see that. And the memes niche will always be the memes niche. Thank you for watching. Subscribe if you want to see more. Definitely tell me if you agree, disagree, if you think things should be tremendously changed. I'll be dropping this in the comments below with the website for all the loadouts, with all the resources, so you can make your own tier list if you would like to. Also, don't forget to check out the live stream, Twitch TV Pony, from 8 AM to 4 PM, where you then try out these guns more and more with different builds to see what is fun, what can compete, what can keep up, what is just viable, where can we get our wins with. Have a wonderful good time, and see you soon in Verdansk.